All right, we'll say good morning. Welcome to everyone who is joining us on the Zoom chat. It is really incredibly special to be able to learn with all of you this morning. It's really exceptional. I'm sure Amirat Hashem, the rest of the Chavirim are going to join us shortly. Also, just I'll announce it again at the end of Shir, but if anyone's interested, we're going to be davening together, our virtual minyan at the end of Shir as well. So if anybody would like to join us, by all means, it would be a great zechus to daven together as well. So we'll say with that, we have a beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Yud Aleph 11, and we are picking up Emir Hashem on the bottom of Yud Amud Beis, on the bottom of 10b. We are picking up Va'amar Rava, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines up from the bottom. So we'll say, so to thank our sponsors, thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Adar, the Learner Mishpacha, in memory of Mrs. Dina Lerner Gerber, Dina Bas Yehuda Leib, the week of learning dedicated by Paul and Kathy Pollack in memory of Paul's grandparents, Zechariah ben Zechariah and Dina Bas Pesach, and Avi Zeisman for dedicating the week of learning in memory of his father, Michael ben Yechiel. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an Aliyah and the families a Nechama. And I will say with that, let us again. I have to say, I know that for the efficiency of this medium, that we have to keep everyone on mute. But I'm not gonna lie if I wouldn't tell you that it feels so lonely to be here without what I wouldn't do for a cough or for a, well, maybe not a cough. I wouldn't do to hear a cough or a sneeze or a cranking of the chair or people looking for their gemaras. But the silence at this time of the morning is a little bit deafening. But hopefully it won't be for too long. All right, so we'll say with that, let us begin. So we're picking up a beautiful, beautiful Gemara ahead of us today. The Gemara says, "Va'amar Rava bar Nechasya, Amar Rav Chama bar Gorya, Amar Rav, li'olam al yishana adam beno ben habanim." A person should never show favoritism to one son, to one child amongst his other children. Incredible lesson. Don't show favorites. Never show favoritism to one child above anyone else. Why? Because of the few extra coins that Yaakov spent on the special coat for Yosef, right? Remember again, Yaakov gave Yosef Eksonas Pasim. Yaakov gave Yosef an even more beautiful coat. So because of the more beautiful coat that Yaakov gave to Yosef above the rest of his children, Niskana Bo'echov, the brothers became jealous of Yosef, V'niskalgel hadavar, and the whole thing spiraled out of control. The Yardu Avosinu leMitzrayim, and our forefathers went down to Egypt. So you have to understand the profundity of what just occurred over here. Chazal just essentially said that the entire Shibud Mitzrayim, the entire Egyptian servitude, occurred because of paternal favoritism. Because Yaakov Avinu went ahead and favored one son over the other. Because Yaakov Avinu went ahead and spent a bit more money on the cloak, on the coat of one son, more than the coat of other sons. So suddenly again, the whole matter escalated and our forefathers went down to Egypt. So we'll say that there's a lot to speak about on this Gemara, which we don't have time for, but remember again, it's fascinating because Shibud Mitzrayim, Egyptian enslavement, was already foretold to Avram Avinu. So leaving that aside, what Chazal is sensitizing us to is that parents have to be so careful the way they treat their children. Every child is different. Every child is a world unto him or herself. Every child deserves, the totality of parental adoration and parental attention, but we have to be so careful that our children never chas v'shalom feel that one is being favored or one is being put up on a pedestal and one is being put down, because sometimes the different ways in which we treat our children can have such long-lasting ramifications. So the Gemara goes on. What's a beautiful idea? Person should always try to live in a city which has been recently settled. Rashi says, "Sheshivasa krova, shenis yashvu ba mikarov kilomar ir chadasha." Person should try to live. It's actually an interesting idea. Person should try to live in a new city, in a city which was recently settled. Why? Because the assumption is that the more recent the city has been settled, the less collective amount of sin it has. A city is judged by its inhabitants. So if a city has been only inhabited relatively recently, so the assumption is that it has very few averos. If it has very few collective averos, that's a good place to live. Shneimar, Hine noha ira zos kraval anoshama vihi mitzar. This is by Lot. When the Malachim are taking Lot and his part of his family to escape Sodom, so Lot says, you know what? There's a close by city. It's mitzar. Let me go ahead and escape there. My krov. What does it mean when he says it's close by? If Lot was saying that it's close by and it's a small city, but the Malachim could see the city as well. So why would Lot have to say that? Ela mitoch sheyeshivasa krova avonoseha mitzuarin. But rather what Lot was saying was like this: since it was recently settled, therefore what? Therefore, it has very little collective sin, and therefore halacha l'maisa, this is a good place to live. Good. Amar Rabbi Abin Mikra. What's the pasuk that supports this? Techsev imaltana shama. Lot says, "Let me escape there." So the Gemara says, "Na bigematria nun." Right, nun v'chad. So na in gematria is 51. V'havi v'shal Sodom nun ubeis. And the gematria of Sodom is 52. V'shalvasa, now the period of tranquility in Sodom, right? In other words, the number of years that the city of Sodom existed before it was destroyed. Top of Yod Aleph, Chaf Vav, D'chsev Shtei Mesrei Shana Avdu Eskedar LaOmer, Ushlosh Esrei Shana Mardu, Uba Arba'asrei Shana Halacha. So you can see Rashi does all the math over here. So you can see the idea that ultimately the city that Lot wanted to escape to was quote unquote younger than the city that of Sodom. And you see from here that ultimately again the sooner, or I should say the lesser amount of time that the city has been occupied and lived in, we assume lessens the amount of collective guilt of that particular city, and therefore a person should always try to live in a newer city which has minimized collective guilt, which of course is good for the inhabitants. Beautiful. We are Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, 4 lines down from the top. Amarav, Kol Ir Sheganoseha Givor Mi Beis HaKnesses. Any city, we'll say actually interesting halacha, any city where the rooftops of the roof, right now we won't define rooftops, we'll just say where the rooftops are higher than the shul, so l'suf chariva, that such a city will be destroyed. So we'll say what Rav is saying is like this: is that the shul, it's such a zuchus to be able to learn a Gemara about the shul. So the shul has to be the highest point in the city. That halacha l'maisa, when constructing a city, when constructing a shul, the shul must be the highest point. And if chas v'shalom you build the city and the homes, the roofs of the homes are higher than the shul, at the end of the day, the city will be destroyed. Shnei emar l'romem espes elokenu ulahamid escharvosav. But say literally again, the Gemara is quoting the pasuk over here from Ezra. L'romem espes elokenu, to extol or to exalt. So it really means to lift up the house of our God, ulahamid escharvosav, and to go ahead and once again rebuild the ruins. So Rashi says over here, so the Rom Espes Elokenu, it's the last of the wide lines on top of Rashi. So if we go ahead and we lift up the house of God, V'al Yidechein Zachinu Laseis Lanu Geder B'Yehuda. So the pasuk is almost read as like a cause and effect. When you lift up the house of Hashem, then at the end of the day, you are able to go ahead and sustain or rebuild the ruins. So the idea being that the house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to be the highest point in the city. But that's only true ultimately again by what? By homes. By homes, that a shul should be higher than any respective home. Aval b'kashkushe va'avrure les lanba. Unless we're talking about towers and forts, we're not worried about that. So the idea is that the shul should really be taller than any domicile. Any place where people live, that's the shul. But if you have other, we'll call it like forts and towers, which are not places where people lived, halach l'maisa, those could be taller than the shul. Good. Amar Rav Ashi, Ana Abdi Lamasa Mechasya Delo Charva. So Rav Ashi said, I made sure of this in the city of Masa Mechasya, which is in Bavel. So Rav Ashi telling us that I made sure that in Bavel, in Bavel, ultimately again, that the shul will be the highest point above all of the homes, and therefore Masa Mechasya was never destroyed. So the Gemara says, really? V'hachareva. Rabbi, we're not exactly sure of that, right? It says Rav Ashi, that's not exactly true. Masa Mechasya was destroyed. So what's the pshat? To which the Gemara says, Osa avon lo charva. It's true, Masa Mechasya was destroyed. And it was destroyed because of some sin, but it wasn't this sin. Okay, so good news. Bad news. Masa Mechasya was destroyed, but Masa Mechasya at least wasn't destroyed because of the sin of making homes higher than shuls. It was just destroyed because of something else. Okay, good. So we'll say we're actually, one of the things we're gonna start during these days is Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, a separate chabura. We'll start learning the halachos of a shul. So if we can't be in shul, we should at least learn the halachos of shul. So we'll actually spend some good amount of time discussing this halacha because it's quite fascinating. Because in fact, we'll see the Shulchan Aruch does codify this particular halacha. It's fascinating because throughout, especially the Middle Ages, and even past that, there was legislation that prevented the actualization of this halacha. Actually, churches, lahavdil, had to be the highest point. So we'll see there's a lot of fascinating history and contemporary analysis of this halacha as well. We'll say another interesting Gemara. Tachas yishma v'lo tachas nachri. So we'll say, so it is better to work for the Yishmael, for an Arab, than it is to work for a Nachri. Now Rashi points out that Nachri in this context actually refers to an Edomi, a Gentile from Edom. So it is better to work for an Arab than it is to work for an Edomi. Rashi says, why is that? So Rashi just points out, Edomim shahayu risha'im yoser. So apparently, the Edomim were known to be more vicious than the Yishmaelim. So therefore, again, if you're choosing an employer, choosing someone to work for, better to work for Yishmael than it is to go ahead and work for an Edomi. Next, so the Gemara says, Tachas shav v'lo tachas nachri. So tachas nachri v'lo tachas chabar. However, if you have a choice between working for a nachri, an Edomi, and a chabar, Rashi says, was another nationality, Uma bimnei Parsim. This was some nation within the Persian Empire who were known to be even more vicious and more evil than the Edomim. So better to go ahead and work for a nachri, work for an Edomi, than it is to work for a chabar. Tachas chabar v'lo tachas talmid chacham. This is fascinating. It is better to work for a chabar, right, rather than to work for a talmid chacham. So I'll say, well, what's the pshat with this? So look at Rashi. This is incredible. Talmid chacham im yaknitu ya'anishenu. Because I'll say, what happens if you go ahead and you distress a talmid chacham? There is severe punishment for distressing a talmid chacham. So therefore, the Gemara says it's not. You see, we're switching gears a little bit. Up until now, it was going to be like, who's going to mistreat you the least? Who's going to mistreat you the least? So better to work for a Yishmael than to work for an Edomi. Better to work for an Edomi than to work for a Chabar. This is a little bit different. It's better to work for the Chabar than to work for the Talmid Chacham, because if Chas v'Shalom in the course of your employment, you cause a Talmid Chacham distress, then at the end of the day, the punishment for causing a Talmid Chacham distress is exceptionally profound. Same idea. So tachas Talmid Chacham or tachas Yasam v'Amana. It is better to work for a Talmid Chacham, running the risk of causing him distress, than to work for an orphan and a widow. But say, what's the pshat with the orphan and the widow? So Rashi says over here, that if you cause distress to an orphan or to a widow, the punishment is swift and severe. And because, as Rashi says, dim asan mitsuya, they cry easily. The widow cries easily, the orphan cries easily. Therefore, again, one has to be so careful and so meticulous the way one operates around them. So literally, Rashi says, better to work for the Chabar than to work for the Talmid Chacham, because if you upset him, you cause him distress, the punishment is severe. But better to work for the Talmid Chacham than a Yassam and Almana, because if you end up Chas v'Shalom causing them distress, the punishment is so profoundly severe as well. So notice another interesting Gemara. Kol choli v'lo choli me'ayim. So illness, I mean, again, obviously we all know illness is terrible, but if you have to have some illness, it is better to have any illness rather than choli me'ayim. Choli me'ayim literally means like a stomach illness or an intestinal illness. So bepashtos, the reason the Gemara says this is why? Because at the end of the day, if a person has a stomach illness or intestinal illness, you can't really go anywhere, right? You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. So because of that, a person will be limited ultimately again in what it is that they're able to go ahead and really do. Kol ke'ev v'lo ke'ev leiv. Similarly, any pain is good, but not heartache. Now, I will say, this is lav dafka refer. The truth is, I was thinking about this yesterday. The Gemara here is talking about physical ailments, right? So again, apparently, better to deal with any aches and pains rather to have aches and pains within the heart. I will say, perhaps on a deeper level, Chazal are also telling us that sometimes it is so much easier to contend with physical pain than it is to contend with emotional pain. So any pain is better than heartache. Heartache is debilitating. Heartache is overwhelming. Heartache is all-consuming. So better to have to deal with any type of ailment and not heartache. Kol mechush v'lo mechush rosh. I will say it is better to deal, again, same idea. Mechush, Rashi says, chashasha ba'alma lafi sha'a v'kal. So as opposed to choli, which is more intense illness and perhaps a bit more sustained, so mechush is something that is a bit more passing in nature. So the Gemara says, so better to deal with any passing illness, but not mechush harosh. Right? It was the same idea. Person has a headache. A headache could be something that is debilitating and prevents you from doing anything else. The Gemara goes on. Kol ra v'lo isha ra. An incredible idea. It is better to deal with any type of evil in this world, except for an evil wife. Let's say the accuses for Sheva Brachas. Let's say so the idea being that what? The idea being that, on a very beautiful level, that a person could deal with a whole bunch of stuff in life. But if a person's shalom bayis is out of order, and a person's marriage is not in a good place, and a person's relationship with his wife is not a healthy one or a good one, then the truth is it undermines a person's ability to have traction in any other area of life. Good. This is such an incredible Gemara. So Amarav Bar Mechasya, Amarav Chaim Bar Goria, Amarav Im Yiyu Kal Hayamim Dio. Even if all of the seas were ink, the Agamim Kolmesim, and all of the marshes, right, all of the reeds were made into quills. Vishamayim Yerios, and the heavens were parchment. The Chol B'nei Adam Lavlerin, and every person was a scribe. So we'll say even if there was an infinite amount of ink, quills, and parchment, and scribes, Ein Maspikim Lichtov Halala Shorashos. We'll say no one could really understand the profundity of government. It's fascinating, Gemara. The profundity of government. Look at Rashi. Halala Shorashos, Omek Libam, Shutzarach Lios Leiv Lakama Medinos, Lamas Hakatzov, Ulakama Melchamos, Ulakama Mishpatim, Vakol Biom Echad. So we'll say what has to happen in the government. So in the government, again, we'll say this Gemara actually speaking positively about the government. That when the government makes decisions, there are so many different layers, so many different levels, so many parts of that particular decision that go into this. So the Gemara says no one really understands. And I will say the truth is, this is in Yanei Diyoma. There are, whether it's from state government, Governor Hogan, or whether it's from the president, there are so many things that are all happening. And when you think about even the decisions that are being made contemporarily regarding groups and regarding closures and businesses, there are decisions that have to be made that impact public health. But at the same time, those decisions impact the economy. They impact small businesses. Everything comes together. So the Gemara says, just understand that sometimes you see government make decisions and you may not understand those particular decisions, but just understand that there are so many levels that go into that decision. Mikra, what's the pasuk that supports this idea, the multifaceted nature of governmental decisions? Amar Misharshia, Shamayim Larum, V'eretz La'omek, V'leiv Malachim Ein Cheker. Literally, again, the heavens go larom to the uppermost levels, the earth goes down to the depths, and the heart of kings has no comprehension or has no boundaries. The idea being you could see the heavens, but even though you can't see how far, you could see the earth, although you can't see as deep. But the heart of kings, meaning the different levels that go into the decisions of government, it's hard for the common person to understand. So we'll say if a person has a bad dream, there's the concept of a tainis chalom. There's a concept ultimately again of fasting. Fasting as a way of negating the negative nature of the dream. Negative. Maishi, I don't know if there's some way, I'm sorry, I don't see everyone who's on the chat. I don't know if there's a way to put everybody together on the same screen, or if there's too many people. I think it would be a big chizik. I think I'm seeing a note that there's 3 screens here, but I'm only seeing one of them. I don't know what the rest of the chevra is seeing also, but if there's some way to put us all together, I think that would be great.
You have to toggle that from the computer.
I have to toggle that? How do I do?
Over.
But there's no way to put everybody together.
No.
Okay, I need you and Jeremy to figure out if fix this by tomorrow morning. Okay, you guys are on this? Excellent.
Sure.
Good. You have the whole day. Good. So it says the Gemara. We have to be together. It has to be some, at least on one screen. So the Gemara says, So we'll say person has a bad dream. So if a person fasts, they have the ability to go ahead and negate that bad dream by fasting. Fasting has the ability to negate the negative effects of a dream. So literally, Keishnors, like fire is to flax. Just like if you ignite flax, at the end of the day, if you ignite flax. So halacha lamaisa, again, the flax is incinerated. By the way, I will say, if you post chat stuff, it comes up on my screen also. I just want to point this out. So let's keep it like regular shir and just text each other independently so I don't see it. Says the Gemara. So if you go ahead and you ignite the flax, so the flax is automatically incinerated. So the Gemara says, but that's only true assuming that what? That you go ahead and fast that day. Only if you fast that day. And we'll say a tainis chalom. So we'll say this is a real thing. Person has a bad dream and they want to make sure that the dream does not come to fruition. So we'll say, if you remember, going back to our brachas days, so you remember we had a whole discussion about dreams. Are dreams meaningful? Are dreams meaningless? Do dreams ultimately follow the interpretation? So obviously this is going with the position that dreams are meaningful. Person has a bad dream. They don't want the dream to portend any type of terrible tidings for the day. What do? You fast. When you fast, you negate the impact of the dream. But that only works if you fast that day. So you had the dream that night, you fast that day. And now this is what we call tainis chalom. And you do this even on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yeshua Berei Rav, so Yeshua, the son of Rav, so Berei Rav, Ekla lebei Rav Ashi. So he went to the house of Rav Ashi. Of delay Igla Tilsa. And Rav Ashi, out of deference for his chashav against Rabbi Yeshua, prepared an igla tilsa. We'll say igla tilsa means a third-born calf, or a calf that has reached 1/3 of its maturity. Either way, the point is, it's a delicacy. Or Rashi says it's a third-born calf. Okay, point is, it's a delicacy. So ultimately, Rav Ashi prepared a beautiful delicacy for his host, for his guest, Rabbi Yoshua. So what happens? So again, Rav Ashi goes ahead and prepares the Suda. He gives it to Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Yoshua is not eating anything. Rabbi Yoshua says, I'm so sorry. I'm fasting. I had a bad dream. I'm having a tainis chalam, so I can't eat anything. I'm so sorry. So the Gemara says, but don't you hold Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda says that halacha lamaisa, a person could always go ahead and break his fast and make it up the next day. Literally what this means is a person could borrow against his fast and repay at a later date, which means that halacha l'maisa, I'll say I start to fast, or I say I'm going to fast, but I actually don't want to fast now. So no problem. You could go ahead and eat now and just make up the fast at a later date. So Rav Ashi is saying, Rabbi Yeshua, Igla Tilsa, Igla Tilsa. How often do you get Igla Tilsa? Chaparayim, right? There's such a beautiful meal in front of you right here. Eat now, eat right. Eat today and fast tomorrow. So the Gemara says, Amrav bar Mechasi, Amrav Chaim bar Guria, Amrav Yafa tainis lechalam keish leneuras v'amrav chista ubo bayom v'amrav Yosef hafilu b'Shabbos. To which Rabbi Yeshua says, I would love to. The only problem is, while that might be true for other types of fasts, when it comes to tainis chalam, the power of tainis chalam, the power of fasting to negate the negativity of a dream is only what? If it's done on that day. So therefore, Rabbi Chista, I truly appreciate Rav Ashi. I truly appreciate the Igla Tilsa, but today I am fasting to negate the dream. So I'll say, remember again, we're going back now to the Mishnah. So the Mishnah, if you remember again, was our topic was things that you should not start before Mincha time, but if you started, you don't have to stop. So amongst those things, the Gemara said, Ve'in mafsikin letfila. So remember again, the end of the Mishnah says, and we don't stop for tefillah. We don't stop for prayer. So we'll say, so remember again, this seems to be redundant. Hat haneleresha ein mafsikin. We'll say, remember again, the entire Mishnah was, these are the activities that you should not engage in before you daven mincha. And as we've seen, what's the concern? The concern is that you may come to go, these activities may become prolonged, and you may end up missing mincha. You may end up missing mincha. And then the Mishnah, but if you started, you don't have to stop. So now the Mishnah is off by saying, Ve'in mafsikin l'tefillah, and we don't stop to daven. So it sounds like what it's saying is, and we don't stop, once you started these activities, we don't stop them to daven. The Gemara says, okay, we already said that before. Why are you restating the Mishnah, the beginning of the Mishnah? To which the Gemara says something very interesting. Seifa asa'an l'divrei Torah. The Seifa actually is coming to teach us regarding Torah, which is something incredible. So the Seifa is coming to teach us the following. Tisanya, chaverim shayu oskin batorah. If a group of Talmidei Chachamim were sitting and learning Torah, mafsikin l'kriyas shma ve'in mafsikin l'tefillah. They stop for Shema, but they don't stop for tefillah. So we'll say if you're learning as a group, you stop for Shema, because Shema is D'oraisa, but you don't stop for Shmona Esrei. So the Gemara now is suggesting that that's the meaning of the last line of the Mishnah. Ein mafsikin l'tefillah means we don't stop Torah learning for the sake of organized prayer. We stop Torah learning for the sake of Shema, because Shema is a D'oraisa, but we will not go ahead and stop learning for the sake of Shmona Esrei, which is a D'Rabbanan. Pretty incredible halacha. So the Gemara says, once again, a pertinent qualification. Rabbi Yochanan, lo shanu elo kigon Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai v'chaveirav, shetarasan umnasan. Aval kigon anu mafsikin l'kriyas shema u'letfila. Rabbi Yochanan says that this halacha is only for people who what we call tarasan umnasan. They are constantly and perpetually preoccupied with learning. So people whose whole lives focus around learning, these type of individuals, like Rabbi Shmuel ben Yochai was, remember again, Rabbi Shmuel ben Yochai was the one who hid in the cave for years and sustained himself on water and boxer and didn't stop learning. So for people like that, Torasan Umnasan, who are constantly and perpetually every waking hour involved in learning, so a person like that doesn't stop their learning for Tefillah, for Shmona Esrei, but will stop their learning for Kriyas Shema. To which the Gemara says, Vatanyo, Kishim Shin Mafsikin L'Tefillah Kachim Mafsikin Kriyas Shema. But one second. But we learned another brisa that in the same way that Talmidei Chachamim don't stop for Tefillah, they also don't stop for Kriyas Shema. So we'll say this makes it sound like even for Kriyas Shema they don't stop. So what's the pshat? Kitani hahi bi'ibur shana. We'll say, what is that talking about? That's talking about, again, Ibur Shana. Ibur Shana is the intercalation of the year, or simpler, leap year. So we'll say, when the leading rabbis of the generation have to get together to establish a leap year, so that was such an important thing, because the Yamim Tovim depend on it, that they stop for nothing. They don't even stop for Kriyas Shema under those circumstances. It's so incredible. When we would sit down and ultimately go ahead and deal with the leap year in Yavne, lo hayinu mafsikin lo l'kriyas shema v'lo l'tfila. We would not go ahead and stop for Kriyas Shema. We would not even stop for Tefillah. We would stop for nothing. Is everything okay? My screen just changed. Okay, so we'll say So just again to appreciate what occurred over here. So the halacha is, so therefore the Gemara is teaching us that halacha l'maisa. So by mincha we already dealt with mincha. We'll come back halacha l'maisa and deal with that a bit. So just suffice it to say that if a person davens mincha at a regular time, the concerns espoused in the Mishnah don't really apply all that much. But of course, conventional wisdom is that if you see that the Zman for Mincha is coming close to an end, obviously don't go ahead and start anything else before you daven Mincha. We see that Talmidei Chachamim, people Torasan Umnasan, who are constantly perpetually involved in learning, historically would not stop for Tefillah, but would stop for Shema. So today we do not paskin like this. Halacha l'maaseh, even those who are Torasan Umnasan, who learn, right? Let's say people who learn all the time, they have the minhag, not the minhag, the halacha is, they still stop for Kriyas Shema, they still stop for Tefillah, but we see again when it comes to the calendar and the declaration of a leap year, so halacha l'maisa, they would even work straight through that. They would work straight through that, even missing Kriyas Shema itself. Good. Rabbi, now back a little bit to Hilchos Shabbos. Fascinating sugya. Lo yetze hachai. So also remember again, we're going back now to the halachos of hotzah, to carrying. But again, not as much focused right now on reshuyos as much as focused on people. Watch this. Lo yetze hachai b'machto samach l'chashecha. A tailor should not go out with his needle close to sundown on Erev Shabbos. What's the concern over here? The concern is the tailor is used to carrying around his needle. So what's going to happen? If it's coming close ultimately to Shabbos and he's walking outside with his needle, what may occur? He may inadvertently go ahead and continue walking on Shabbos with his needle in hand. Now, of course, if that happens, he will end up violating hotzah. Either he'll carry something from one domain to another, or he'll go ahead and inadvertently carry it dalet amas in Rishos Harabim. So I will say the idea of this Mishnah, as you're going to see, is anything that you're used to normally carrying around during the week, you must be especially vigilant with it in the little bit of time before Shabbos, out of concern that if you start carrying it a bit before Shabbos, you may end up carrying it into Shabbos. So the Gemara says similarly, "V'lo halavlar b'klumoso." A scribe should not go ahead and carry around his quill, because a scribe, a sofer, is used to carrying around his quill. So if he goes out with it on Erev Shabbos, samuch l'chashecha, a little bit before Shabbos starts, what may happen? Halacha l'maisa, he may end up carrying it on Shabbos. Shami yishkach v'lo yitzei, v'lo halavlar b'klum, v'lo yifala es kelev, person should not delouse his clothing. So the Gemara is going to discuss why exactly this is here and what this is talking about. That remains to be seen. V'lo yikar the araner, but say another interesting halacha, that on Shabbos, a person should not go ahead and read a sefer by the light of their lantern. So let's remember again, how were their lanterns set up? So you would have like a receptacle with oil, and there would be like a little groove at the lip of the receptacle. You'd put a wick in that. You'd light the wick, and it would draw the oil. What happens if the flame was flickering? You would tilt the oil lamp a little bit to go ahead and feed the wick a bit more. Well, that act of feeding the wick on Shabbos is actually an Isser D'Oraisa of Havara, of kindling. So therefore, again, Chazal said, you are not allowed to read by the light of the lantern on Shabbos, Shemayata es Haner, lest you go ahead and move the oil lamp. Again, when I say move, this is not muktzah. This is out of a concern of tilting the lamp to feed the wick more oil to sustain the flame, which is an act of Havar, an act of kindling on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Be'emes amru, in reality they said, Hachazin roa heichan tinokos korin, aval hu lo yikra. Similarly, again, we'll say the chazin. Now the chazin in this context is not like we think about it, the person who leads the tefillah, but the chazan in this context is the individual who's in charge of teaching the children. So he would be like the Kriya Rebbe, right? The Rebbe who was teaching the kids how to read. So what would happen? The kids would be in the shul, and the chazan, the Rebbe, would walk around seeing where they're all up to, making sure they know the place, making sure where they are, and what happens. So now the Mishnah says over here that the chazan himself, when teaching the children on Shabbos, should not go ahead and utilize the light, but he could utilize the light a little bit to see where the kids are up to. So again, we'll see this more in depth in the Gemara. So the Gemara said furthermore, Lo yochal azavim azava mipnei hergel aveira. Similarly, again, I will say now, this is very interesting because this seems to be coming out of left field. So now the theme of this Mishnah is that we do things in order to distance people from sinning. So we take additional steps in order to distance people from sinning. So therefore, again, the tailor shouldn't go out with his needle samuch l'chashecha, immediately before Shabbos. The scribe should not go out with his quill. A person should not read by the light of the candle, lest he. These are all precautionary measures. The chazan should go ahead and see where the kids are up to, but should not use the light to learn himself. So we'll say once we're talking about precautionary measures, the Mishnah kind of goes in a dramatically different direction and says something amazing. Kayotzi bo lo yochal hazavim azavim ibnei hergel aveira. Interestingly enough, similarly, a zav and a zava. So we'll say, so remember again, these are people who had some type of emissions. Some type of emissions which renders them tameh. Now the degree of tumah, as we're going to see, depends on the nature of the emission. But the Gemara says similarly, a zav and zava should not eat together because eating together could create an atmosphere of intimacy, and the creation of an atmosphere of intimacy could go ahead and lead to intimacy, which of course would be prohibited between the zav and the zava. So interesting that the Mishnah adds this in. Of course, the reason it's here is because this too is a precautionary measure, but interesting that it's here, even though it has nothing to do with Shabbos. So we'll see in the Gemara. But I will say, but that's the theme. Chazal said certain things that you're used to carrying, we don't want you to carry it already samuch l'chashecha, already before the onset of Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Tanan Hasam, Lo Yamot Adam Birshas Hayachid v'yishteh Birshas Harabim, Birshas Harabim v'yishteh Birshas Hayachid. If a person is standing in Rishas Hayachid, he should not drink something in Rishas Harabim. And if he's standing in Rishas Harabim, he shouldn't drink something in Rishas Hayachid. What's the concern? The concern is that if you're standing in one rishos, drinking in another rishos, you may come to take the item that you're drinking and pull it into the rishos in which you're standing, which would be an act of hotzah. But if you extend your head and the majority of your body into the rishos in which you are drinking, then ultimately again it is mutter and there is no concern. Amud Beis, v'chein begat, and Abba said the same halacha applies to a wine press. So we'll see exactly what that statement means in just a moment. So we'll say, what about the following situation? So now I understand. I can't stand in one rishus. I can't stand in one domain and go ahead and let's say extend my mouth, right? My head and my mouth into another domain and drink in that other domain. Why not? What's the concern? The concern is that I may come to carry something from one domain to another. But if the majority of my body and my head and my body is extended into that second domain, then there is no concern of transferring the item from one domain to another. What about from one domain to a carmelis? So also remember again, what's the carmelis? So the carmelis is this secondary, this domain, which really, as we saw, has attributes of a Rishus HaYachid, has attributes of a Rishus HaRabim. So to say a little bit better, meaning it's really like a Rishus HaRabim, but lacks all the criteria of the Rishus HaRabim. So because of that, what we do with it, if you remember again, we give it attributes of the Rishus HaRabim and the Rishus HaYachid. So we'll say, so does this drinking scenario apply to a carmelis or not? So for example, if I'm standing in Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim, doesn't really matter. Can I drink? Can I just extend my head and my lips into a carmelis and drink like that? Or are we concerned, or do we say that a carmelis is just like Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim and can't be done? To which the Gemara says, Amar Abaye he. So Abaye says a Carmelist is no different than a Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah. The halacha is you can't stand in one domain and just have your head and your lips in a second domain and drink like that. You can't do that. Whether that second domain is a Rosh Hashanah, or Rosh Hashanah, or a Carmelist, you can't do it. Rava Amar hi gufa gzera va'anoneka v'nigzer gzera l'gzera. So we'll say Rava says like this. Meikar adin, a Carmelist, right, is not a place of chiyuv. So because of that, on a technical level, there's no problem. So we'll say, let's analyze this. On a technical level, is there anything wrong with standing in one domain and extending your head and your mouth into a second domain and drinking? And the answer, of course, is no. On a technical level, there's no problem with that. We're concerned about what may occur. They both say a Carmelist is the same idea. A Carmelist is a reshus that, technically speaking, one would not be liable for transferring an item from one domain to another. So the Gemara essentially says now, to impose this gezer, to impose this rabbinic enactment, rabbinic decree, rabbinic law on a Carmelist is a double-layered rabbinic enactment. So what you're going to tell me now is, I'm standing in Rosh Hashanah, I want to stick my head into a Carmelist and drink. Right, just my head. You're going to tell me I can't do that because I may come to take the item from the Carmelist into my Rosh Hashanah. But that's a double gezerah. That's a double rabbinic enactment. Enactment number one is that a Carmelist itself, technically speaking, I could carry between a Carmelist and a Rosh Hashanah. It's just the rabbi said I couldn't. So that's rabbinic prohibition number one. And now you want to take another rabbinic prohibition and put that on top of the first rabbinic prohibition and go ahead and tell me that I can't drink from a Carmelist Rosh Hashanah. Both say that's what's called the gezerah al gezerah, a rabbinic enactment on top of another rabbinic enactment, and generally we don't do that. To which the Gemara says, that's called the gzera l'gzera. One rabbinic enactment on another rabbinic enactment. Do we actually do that? To which the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, mina minallah. From where do I know this? That again, the Gemara says, v'chein begat. Because remember again, the Brisa said that the same halacha applies to a wine press. To a wine press. So what does that mean? My gat. What does that mean to a wine press? Se'ir shasayachet tanina. Supposed to say, what's the wine press? If the wine press is Rosh Hashanah, we already stated this halacha. If the wine press is Rosh Hashanah, we already stated this halacha. Elo lav Carmelist. Abaye says, you see, what's the case of the gat? What's the case of the wine press? The case of the wine press is where the wine press is a Carmelist. The wine press is a Carmelist. And yet, the Bryce is telling me that even though the wine press is a Carmelist, I still can't stand in one domain, stick my head and my mouth into a second domain, and drink from the Carmelist. That you can't do. So Rava Amar v'chein begat. Rava said, what does gat mean? He says, v'chein begat le'inyan meiser. Rava says, no. V'chein begat is not talking about this issue ultimately of drinking from one domain to another. Because remember, again, Rava holds that you can have your body in one domain and stick your head into a Carmelist. Because to say that you can't stick your head and drink in the Carmelist would be a gzera l'gzera. Two levels of rabbinic enactments, one on top of the other. So what does it mean, v'chein begat? This is incredible. Le'inyan meiser means for tithing purposes. Watch this. V'chein amarav sheishes v'chein begat le'inyan meiser. This none we learned, shosin alagat. Rabbi said the halacha is that in general, you cannot partake of something until it's been tithed. And if it hasn't been tithed, you can't drink of it. Shabbos says, but the exception to that rule is what we call achila sarai, or I should say differently. If something is not yet finished its processing, then halacha lemaisa, you could still partake of it as achila sarai, in kind of like a snacking type of way. So if something is not fully processed, or I should say better, it's not fully completed, therefore the obligation of trumas and maasros have not devolved upon it yet. So listen to this interesting case. So the Mishnah says, you could drink wine right from the press. So I'm scooping up wine from the press and I'm going to dilute it. Whether I dilute it with warm water or cold water, upater, divrei Meir. And Meir says it's not chayiv in trumas and maasros. Why? Because when the wine is still in the press, it's not yet considered finished. So because it's not yet considered finished, you could partake of it without tithing it. Whether you dilute it with warm water, cold water, we'll see that distinction in just a moment. You're pater. You're allowed to do it. Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok mechai. Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok says no. Halacha l'maisa. Even when it's in the press, it is subject to the halachos of tithing, and therefore you may not drink of it until you go ahead and tithe it. The Chachamim say it depends. Alachamin chayiv. if you go ahead and you dilute the wine with warm water. So you take it from the press. Remember, Rabbi said they were making wine concentrate. So you always had to dilute it. So if you're taking it from the press and you're diluting it with warm water, you have to take Trumas and Maasros before you go ahead and you drink it. However, alatzonin pater. But if you dilute it with cold water, you're pater. Rabbi say, now why is that? Why is if you dilute it with cold water that shall be pater? Mipnei shu machzir as hamoser. This is very interesting. So apparently, once you dilute wine with warm water, if you have leftover, you can't pour it back into the vat. But if you go on and you dilute it with cold water, you can go ahead and dilute it in. You can pour back whatever is left over. So the Chum make this interesting distinction. So if you go ahead and you take wine from the vat, you dilute it with warm water, it's done. It's done. Meaning what that's considered finished because you can't do anything with the leftovers. But if lamaisa you go ahead and diluted it with cold water, then haloch lamaisa, that's still called achila sarai. That's still called like a consumption in an unfinished state because you could pour back the leftovers, and therefore again you would not be chayiv in shumas and maasros. Good. So we'll say therefore again. So both Abaye and Rava interpret that last line of v'chein bagat a little bit differently. So we'll say the Gemara goes like to we'll say now this topic of how many layers of rabbinic enactments can you place one on top of the other is an exceptionally important discussion. So it says the Gemara Tanan, Lo yetzi hachayit b'machat samach l'chashecha. So let's analyze. The Mishnah said that the tailor may not go out with his needle samach l'chashecha. Now both said, now we haven't defined, by the way, what samach means. How close to sunset. So we'll have to get to that. But lamaisa, for our purposes now, sometime before sunset, the tailor can't go out because we're afraid if we let him go out now, then he's going to end up carrying it on Shabbos. Shema yeshkach v'yetzei. Ultimately, again, lest he go ahead and forget and walk out with it on Shabbos. My love now, how did the tailor normally transport his needle? He would stick it in his lapel. So let's say for argument's sake, he goes ahead and he carries it that way. So we'll say even if he were to carry it that way, that really shouldn't be a normative form of hotzah. Now we'll say what we're going to see is that in general for Hilchos Shabbos, so in order to violate a malacha, you have to do it in a normative fashion. Right? If you don't do it in a normative fashion, then you won't be chayiv. So a normative fashion of hotzah is you carry something in your hands. How does the tailor normally go ahead and transport his needle? He sticks it in his lapel. So let's analyze this. You're now saying the tailor shouldn't walk out with the needle stuck in his lapel close to Shabbos because he may come to transport it on Shabbos. But Rabbi said, let's say even if he does, he's transporting it in what? In a non-normative fashion, which would only be prohibited rabbinically and not biblically. So what do you see from here? We're legislating rabbinic law to safeguard rabbinic law. So even if he were to transport it with his stuck in his lapel, right? So now we're saying don't take it out on Erev Shabbos, before Shabbos, which is a rabbinic prohibition, lest you come to carry it while it's stuck in your lapel, which in and of itself is a rabbinic prohibition. So you see from here that what are you doing? You are legislating two levels of rabbinic law, one on top of the other. Take a quick look at Rashi. I know we're running out of time, but take a quick look at Rashi. My love the tchuva big do she'in derech hotzah bekach. This is not the normative way to carry. Va'afilo hotzia l'rishsarab meshechashecha shvus ba'almahu. And even if he were to carry it directly on Shabbos, it would only be a rabbinic prohibition. V'kagazer samach lechashecha atu chashecha. What do you see from here? You see from here that halacha l'mais, when it comes to Shabbos, we are gozrinon gzeira ligzeira. You see from here that on Shabbos, we do make multiple layers of rabbinic law, one on top of the other. Suppose you hear what's happening over here. So remember, what we're doing over here is you're legislating one rabbinic law to safeguard another rabbinic law. So we're just going to go 2 more minutes. So the idea being that here, even if the tailor were to go out on Shabbos with the needle embedded in his lapel, that would only be a rabbinic prohibition. So now you're saying we don't want you, tailor, going out on Erev Shabbos before nightfall, lest you come to go ahead and carry out the needle while it's embedded. So we're going to enact a rabbinic enactment to make sure that you don't violate rabbinic law. That's called gzeira legzeira. So you see from me that you do make a gzeira legzeira to Shli to not get lebiadei. No, that's not the case. The case we're actually dealing with over here is where the tailor is holding the needle in his hand. That's the case of the Mishnah. So he's holding the needle in his hand. That would potentially be an act of hotza'ah midoraisa, a biblical carrying. So now we're making rabbinic law to prevent you from violating biblical law. Okay, so we're okay with that. But it's a little bit weiter. Tashma lo yetzeh chay b'machto b'atchol lo b'bigdo. We have another brayso that says that what the tailor should not go out on Shabbos with his needle that is embedded in his clothing. My love be'erev Shabbos. Are we not? Isn't brayso not saying that you can't do this on erev Shabbos? In which case, gzeira legzeira. It's 2 layers of rabbinic law. Lo kitanya hi b'Shabbos. No, it's actually that's talking about Shabbos itself. Okay, so on Shabbos itself, the tailor should not go out with the needle embedded in his clothing. Fine. I v'hatanya. Lo yetzia chayit b'machto atchuva b'gdo be'erev Shabbos im chashecha. But once I have a brayso that says the tailor should not go out with the needle embedded in his clothing on Erev Shabbos before it gets dark. So what I see here is to be quite explicit that the tailor is not permitted to go ahead and wear his and have his needle embedded in his clothing, and he can't go out like that before Shabbos. So this is a gzeira legzeira. Hamani Rabbi Hudahi the Amar Uman derech umnaso chayiv. Rabbi say this is the position of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda is fascinatingly enough in general that an uman, a craftsman, is chayiv for carrying if he's carrying in a way that is normative for his trade. So what I see here, it's understandable sometimes that if a person has a trade, he goes ahead and he carries his stuff in a certain way. Rabbi Yehuda says if a craftsman carries his stuff in his normative way, even though again I'm not a craftsman, so for me it would be abnormal to carry in this way, the uman will be chayiv on Shabbos for carrying in a way we'll call that as uman specific, that is trade specific. So the Gemara says, we'll stop with this. Tisanya lo yetzeh chay b'machto atchuva lo b'bigdo. So the tailor should not go out with a needle embedded in his clothing, because that's the way that the tailor goes ahead and carries his stuff on Shabbos. V'lo nagar b'kisam sheba ozno. A carpenter shouldn't go out with his ruler tucked behind his ear. Right? How does a carpenter walk around with his ruler behind his ear? If I walk out like that on Shabbos, ultimately, again, I wouldn't be chayiv midoraisa. I'd only be chayiv midrabanan, because that's not a normal way to carry a ruler. But for a carpenter, that is a normal way. Therefore, he'll be chayiv. Shevazno v'lo sori b'meshicha. And I will say a person who combs wool should not go out with his comb. Sheba'azno, also tucked behind his ear. So the wool comber, would often go ahead and also put his comb behind his ear. V'lo gardi be'avir sheba'azno. The gardi is also a weaver. Doesn't go with literally. Ira means a stopper. It was something that he used for the loom. So he would carry this thing behind his ear. But say a person who dyes wool should not go ahead. So a person who dyes wool would often carry samples of his dyeing, of his wares. He would wear it on his shoulder or by his neck. He shouldn't go out with that on Shabbos. And a money changer shouldn't go out with a dinar, a coin, behind his ear. And if he did so, Pater aval aser divrei Meir. So Rabbi Meir holds that if any of these individuals carried these items in their way, it's pater aval aser, meaning it is mutter midrabanan. It is pater midoraisa, but aser midrabanan. So Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that in order to be chayiv for carrying something on Shabbos, what do? You have to carry it in your hand. And if you're not carrying it in your hand and you have it behind your ear, or stuck in your clothing, that's a non-normative act of carrying. And even if that's normal for your profession, the laws of Hotzah are not governed by your profession. They're governed by normative actions. What you're doing is a non-normative action, and therefore halacha l'maaseh, it's pater aval aser, meaning it's mutter midaraisa, but aser midrabanan. And what's within this? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, uman derech umnaso chayiv, ushar kol adam pater. Rabbi Yehuda on the other hand holds that halacha l'maisa, if an uman, if the craftsman carries the tools of his wares in the normal way that craftsmen do, if they do that on Shabbos, they will be chayiv mid'oraisa. But if another person were to carry that way, ultimately again they would be pater and only chayiv midrabanan. So we'll stop over here for today. But you see a fascinating machlokes. And the fascinating machlokes is what happens when a person carries in a way that for the common man looks non-normative, but for the particular craftsman is absolutely normative. Rabbi Meir says there is one standard of hotzah for everyone. Everyone. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, whether you're an uman or you're a regular guy, if you don't carry in the normal way, halacha l'maisa, you will not be chayv. It'll only be asr midrabanan. On the other hand, Rabbi Yehuda holds that halacha l'maisa, no, there's different standards of carrying. For a regular person, carrying may look X, but for the uman, the carrying may look like Y. So if you're an uman and you carry in the way that is specific to your trade, you'll be chayiv on Shabbos. But if you're not an uman and you carry the way that an uman does, then halacha l'maisi would be pater on Shabbos. So we'll stop here. We're going to continue with this sugya tomorrow. For those who want to stay on the chat, we're going to have our virtual minyan together. I will have to check what time. The goal will be Emir Hashem to get to Vasikin together. So we'll give everybody a few moments to, I guess if you want to schmooze a little bit before davening, we should keep up our regular patterns of behavior. And then Mir Hashem we'll start together in just a few moments. Yeshikar Chabosai.
13 is needs.
I'm sorry, what time?
7:13.
7:13. Okay, great. So Moshe, you'll between Moshe and Gavi, you'll